Termites. It's night 25. Look how far we've made it. Looks like we made it. Yeah, so what are we drinking? How interesting is this? Zach Brown, the country person, you know, gun of chicken fried. I don't know. I went to Iraq and Afghanistan with him, and I should remember that song, right? But as you know, I don't know a lot of country music, but I did go out and listen to him do that song every night. It was fun. Go out. I mean, I left the tent and went out where it was colder than in the tent to, because everybody got super excited, and then I learned that song. In a tent, chicken fried, something. In a tent, cold beer on a Friday night. Gonna be just fit just right. And turn the radio on. And then Lou's eyes would just go, how do you know this? I'm like, I don't, Lou. We've heard it 6 nights in a row. I'm learning it as we go if you'd pay attention. All right. So anyway, he has a wine, and I liked the label. Well, he was very nice. I like him too, I suppose. He was a very nice person. He had band people with him, though, so we didn't really interact as much as, well, I mean, we slept in bunk beds together. Not in the same bunk bed, but there was like 4 sets of bunk beds, 5 sets in one of Saddam's castles in, I don't remember where in Iraq. It was a castle that he had only been to, like a palace, not a castle, right? Yeah, a palace. He built it for his daughter's wedding, and it was on this lake, and then people were saying there were a lot of dead bodies in the lake, but some of the soldiers had fishing poles, and they let me borrow one, and I went fishing. I caught nothing. My fear was I'm going to catch a body. I was hoping for like a crazy Middle Eastern carp. I don't know. Anyway, that's enough about Zach, but he has his own wine now. Good for him. Good for you. As my good friend Rocky LaPorte, the comedian, would say, no matter what I say to Rocky, go for you, cat. Go for you. I could say, Rocky, I accidentally killed my parents, and their bodies are in the trunk of my car. Go for you. Go for you, cat. You need anything? I'm here to help. Okay, termites, we're breezing right through this. Won't be long till we're done, and I haven't made the decision about where we're moving yet, to what book next. Sometimes I take a little break, like a week break, just give myself some off time and act like I'm more unemployed than I already am. All right. They've all been out in California for rehab. It hasn't gone well for hardly anybody. Dude stayed. The sons left drunk. They didn't even go. They weren't supposed to go to rehab. It's supposed to be family counseling. That's catching you up. Dude had stayed in rehab for about 5 weeks and stayed sober for 5 more weeks when he got out. That's pretty good for a first try, I'd say. When he started drinking again, it was worse than ever. Oh, no. Them tabloid stories was his excuse. Since everybody and his dog knowed that dude was a drunk, he was a dog drunk, he might as well be getting back to being one. It's so simple. The logic is so great. The publicity had been a license to drink. I know he was in a pitiful stage of alcoholism one night when I heard him peeling back a paper bag to get a sip of vodka right there in bed. He woke up, and that was the first thing he wanted. I heard that sound many times over the next years. I remember telling a reporter, I wouldn't live my life over again if you handed it to me on a silver platter. Well, that's sad. Chapter 20, Friends in the White House. See, it can all turn on a dime. Of course, the minute I say something like I wouldn't live my life over again, I remember saying some of them special folks who made me feel like I was living the perfect life. Meeting the United States presidents fits into that category. This is one of the things that makes being an entertainer so interesting. The people you meet. I was at the White House right around the time President Nixon was involved in Watergate. I well remember how silly I felt that night because I wore this Victorian dress. I thought you were supposed to dress old-fashioned at the White House. Now, why would you think that? Because were you looking at pictures of like the 1800s? I would think somebody would tell her or help her. When we ate, I sat between Mrs. Nixon, Pat, and a black gentleman who was from General Motors. I looked down at all them forks and asked which one of the forks I was supposed to use for salad. I wouldn't know either. He just grinned. I did learn it I learned it in The Queen. Or did I learn it in Downton Abbey? Start from the outside. That's what I had to learn it from Netflix, though, at age 75. He just grinned and said, well, at home I only use this one, so I'm not going to worry about it. That put me at ease, but I still watched him and tried to use the same forks as he did. And I well remember how President Nixon left suddenly, looking worried. Yeah, I would imagine so. Get the dog. Where's Checkers? We're leaving. I asked Pat if Richard was all right. She just smiled and said nothing was wrong. I also asked her what kind of cream she used to clean her face, because she had the most beautiful skin I'd ever seen. She just said she used soap, nothing special. The press heard that I called Richard Nixon Richard to his face instead of President Nixon. When we got off the airplane in Chicago next morning, I saw 3 cameras and a bunch of reporters coming toward the plane. I stood aside to see what movie star or other important person was going to get off the plane. Shucks. First one they ran up to was me and said, Loretta, why did you call the president by his first name? Well, why not just call him Jailbird? It shocked me that when they asked such a question, I looked at them for a second. Well, they called Jesus, didn't they? That ended the interview and they took off in a dead run. Well, that's a good answer. I like it. Not long after that, Watergate broke out in all the newspapers. I'd known Jimmy Carter before he was president. I got to know him and his mama, Miss Lillian, in Georgia years before he was running the country. They'd come to my shows. I loved him, and I loved Miss Lillian. She was a character. This is one woman who said just what she thought. I remember one time I was mad at Merv Griffin, and I said I wouldn't do his television show. He called back and said, if I get Miss Lillian, would you do it? Well, I couldn't turn that down, so I'd done it, and we had ourselves a ball. Doolittle used to tell folks about his visit to the Carter White House. He was so upset he wouldn't be serving whiskey fast enough. Oh, no. You going to take dog drunk Doolittle Lynn? You know you got to bring your own whiskey in. Them waiters are too slow with that fancy shit. Their white gloves and their trays. No, that ain't going to be like a tavern. No, it's going to be slow. He sneaked into where the kitchen staff was and said, boys, I know somebody's got some whiskey stashed. And one of them left and brung him a glass of Jack Daniels. He stayed with the cooks for the rest of the event. Just a little bit embarrassing, right? Oh, hello, Miss Lynn. Where's your husband? He's dog drunk in the kitchen with the help, shooting whiskey. If anybody ever president made me feel like I was special, it was President George H.W. Bush. If any woman alive is my hero, it is Barbara Bush. George Bush was the only candidate I ever campaigned for, and I worked hard for him both times he ran. Barbara's one of the best first ladies in the world, too. She shamed me into trying to take some classes to get my GED. I still ain't got it, but I'm studying. Okay. That's hard to do when you're managing all these drunks running around on a farm. As to my continuing education, Jet Williams, daughter of the great Hank Williams, and my best girlfriend in the music business, and her husband, my lawyer and manager, Keith Atkinson, are tutoring me on the road so I can get my GED from the local college I support. And if I have my say, I'm going to figure out some way for Barbara Bush to give it to me, or at least be there when I get it. Since she inspired me. First thing I love about President George H.W. Bush and First Lady Barbara Bush is that they're real. Ain't a phony bone in either one of them. Dew and me was visiting one time, and I came into the room to find the president and Dew on their hands and knees studying a desk. Look here, Loretta, Dew said. This is quite a desk the president's made, and he had made it himself, too. One of the finest rugs I'd ever seen is one Barbara made, needlepoint and all of her kids' names into it. I remember when Barbara was showing me the White House kitchen when her daughter stopped by to say goodbye. She said she had to leave because she had to make some cookies for her little girl to take to school the next day. Barbara said, well, maybe we can have it done here. How many cookies you need? 75, her daughter said. Oh, dear, Barbara said, that's too many for the taxpayers to have to pay for. Anybody else wouldn't have given a second thought to baking 1,000 cookies in the White House kitchen, but not Barbara. I'll never forget her worrying over 75 cookies, and I've told that story many times, even on stage. Let me tell you how most folks are. All right. At President George H.W.'s inauguration, there was a party at the White House. I attended with a bunch of other artists. We all had us a White House glass with a drink in it. I finished my Coke and turned my glass to the bartender. The other artist had already left, gone out the door. When I handed my fancy glass back to the bartender, he said, "God bless you, honey. You're the only one who didn't take the glass with him." Well, that's just the way I am. Taxpayers pay for the glasses, too. Let me tell you what, Barbara Bush would have turned her glass in, too, if she'd have been in my shoes. Well, what about Loretta Lynn? He's still back there shooting whiskey out of a glass? Maybe he's just going straight for the bottle. I'm going to say swigging it out of the bottle, which is located in a bag. Would be my guess. Every time I see President George H. Bush, I talk politics, my idea of politics. I got all kinds of worries about health care, poor folks, and nursing homes. I'm sure he was excited to hear that. I got me a list started for President George W. Bush, too. I wasn't sure just when I get to see him to give it to him my concerns, but the new President Bush recently asked me to serve on the Presidential Advisory Commission for the Performing Arts. I bet I can take advantage of this to give him advice on a few other things, too. I'm not usually on a soapbox, but right now I'm climbing up on one of them to say that George H.W. Bush was one of our greatest presidents, and he hasn't gotten enough credit for it. I got no gripe with Ronald Reagan, but every time I hear folks saying another airport or highway ought to be named after Reagan, I say, why ain't they naming a bunch of things after President Bush? Well, what about Carter? You liked him. How about his drunk brother, Billy Carter? My parents still have a six-pack of Billy beer. It's in the basement. I've already claimed it. When they're dead, I get it. After all, he was there for 8 years advising Reagan. That's right, he was his vice president. And then 4 more successful years. Our economy was pulling out of a slump by the time he left office, too. It griped me half to death when folks throwed it up to him that he raised taxes after he said he wasn't going to do it. Well, he did. Now, he did, sweetness, he did. Shoot, you show me a president that hadn't had to make hard decisions, whether he wanted to or not. Yeah, but he shouldn't have said it. I agree. You're always going to have to, but you can't say that, and then especially if you're a conservative. Not sure I could find the words to describe how I felt when the events of September 11, 2001 happened. I was just numb. And I was in California where I was supposed to play a show in San Francisco. It got canceled because of security worries. We drove all the way back to Tennessee, and I still couldn't take it all in. Pure evil is what it was. But even if I can't fully describe the feelings of loss and heartache for our country, I can easily say this. I was glad that George W. Bush was in the White House and that he had a daddy like George H.W. Bush. The country's pulling together, and our current president learned from the best, his daddy. Chapter 21. She kept folks smiling. For you page nerds, that's page 170. Speaking of mommies and daddies, whether they're presidents, first ladies, or mine, some folks has the idea that I was closer to my daddy than my mommy. I was a daddy's girl, all right, but I love my precious mommy more than anything. And like I mentioned earlier, she was my finest teacher. Mama was no hillbilly shrinking violet either, no quiet like she seemed in the film. She could really be something, Clara Webb. She sang and danced, winning Charleston dancing contests right and left. I used some of her Charleston routine and mixed it up with other steps in my show. I remember once I had a show in Las Vegas. My opening act was a wrestling match. Really? I've never thought of that. A little wrestling? My friend Greg Warren used to wrestle in college. Maybe I could get him to wrestle somebody. He'd probably like it. My opening act was a wrestling match. Mommy purely loved wrestling and went to one of the shows with my sister Crystal Gale and my daughter Sissy. But the night they went, I'd already learned it was fake. I couldn't believe it. Them boys backstage plotting out the whole thing. So I told my mommy how it was fake. That's a lie, Mommy said firmly. No, it ain't a lie. I heard them plain as day. I had an aunt who believed, there used to be this thing in St. Louis. It was on television. It was called Wrestling at the Chase. The Chase was a hotel, and they would do it live. It was a big deal when I was a kid. Live from the Chase Hotel in St. Louis, Missouri. It is Wrestling at the Chase. And all of us knew it was fake, except my one aunt. But she was much, much older, and she was not buying it. She believed every last minute of it. Mommy was having none of it. And then she got us to the show that night. She was ready for blood. She wasn't as big as nothing. A big wind could have blown her across the yard. She sat there yelling at them big old men anyway. You son of a bitch, don't you hit him again. Oh, cussing too. Every time one of them did something dirty, she'd jump up and yell at them, and she never did believe it was all for show. She was darn near mad enough to whoop me for even suggesting it. Yep. Mama danced and sang and always loved a good joke. She was one who didn't mind a little off-color joke too, but she was in the hospital. She called me every night before my show, and she'd tell me a joke. She'd tell a joke to tell the audience. I remember the last one she ever told me. Loretta, have I told you about the old man who was walking down the road and found a little boy crying? Tell me the story, I said, amazed at as sick as she was still telling jokes. Well, this old man stops and says, little boy, what's the matter? Why are you crying so hard? Little boy stops crying long enough to explain, I just learned I can't do what the big boys do. And that man all sat down and started crying too. I don't get it. Is there more? This old man, what's the matter? Why are you crying so hard? Little boy stopped, I just learned I can't do what the big boys do. And the old man stopped, I guess it's just about sex. It's not very funny. Whatever. She even got drunk one time. I surely don't want to make light of drinking and the problems it can cause. Well, I know you wouldn't. This is one lady who can say, look, I have a funny drunk story because she has 70,000 horrific ones. But it's true fact that when I was about 5 years old, Clara Marie Webb got drunk on her way from Van Leer to Butcher Holler. This before Daddy got to work in the mines or the WPA, work from the government. So like many men during the Great Depression, Mama pulled her weight by walking to Van Leer every day to do people's washing and ironing. She could earn 50 cents a day, and it came in handy. One day when it was real cold out, Mama started walking home, and who should have come up the road? You guessed it, Cousin Lee Dollarhide. Woo-hoo! Clary, you look like you're freezing. You better have a little moonshine to warm you up. Oh, Lord, let's stop there. Because we all know moonshine, it tastes good. Well, the flavored ones. This kind of moonshine this lady drank, no. It tastes like gasoline. At my grandpa's funeral, there was some little drunk Irishman out in the car. And my dad said, if he asks you to go outside, go, but don't drink what he offers you. We're at a wake. Okay, Dad. And I went out there, and this guy had a whole trunk full of moonshine he'd made at home. And you know what I did? I drank it. I didn't listen to no Jack Madigan, did I? No jackalope. This little old man's worked this hard to make this stuff. I mean, it probably could have killed me. I don't know. I did a shot of it. He was happy I did it. It didn't kill me. No harm, no foul. But moonshine like that tastes like pure gasoline to me. You got to get it flavored. They have so many good flavors now. Hunch punch, margarita, coffee, for you coffee flavor moonshine. Oh, okay, termites. We're almost done. Yeah. And she's still alive. I wish she'd write it. Maybe there's another one. I got to go look. I haven't had time. Well, come on. I've had time. Who am I kidding? I've had time. I've just been doing other things. The pubcast, are you guys going and listening? Subscribe on the YouTube. That's probably where you're seeing this. Pull your sheets up. It's cold out there, termites. Cold. Coldest as a witch's tit. All right. Pull your sheets up. Close your eyes. You're a worthy termite. Some of you are chubby. That's all right. Doesn't matter. We'll address all of that when the pandemic's over. Or not. Most of you are very nice termites, and you're nice to each other, and I notice it on YouTube, and I read the comments, and sometimes I respond, and then sometimes, I don't know, I'm doing other stuff, but I do read most of them, for the record. All right, termites, are you ready? Pull your sheet up, tuck your own selves in. Night-night, termites.